last 5 weeks or so, I've driven 4 of these mid-size 3-row SUVs. I'll name them for you. 2021 Volkswagen Atlas with a 2-liter turbo, the 2022 Subaru Ascent with a 2.4-liter turbo, the 2022 Nissan Pathfinder with a V6 and a new 9-speed automatic transmission, and this one. Now this is a 2021.5 Mazda CX-9. In Canada, there is, at the time of doing this review, no 2022 available for sale or online on their website. In the US, however, there is a 2022. I don't know. I don't make the rules. And why I'm kind of happy to end this run of 3-row SUVs with the CX-9 is that all these SUVs that I've driven kind of end up pointing in the direction of the CX-9. Now what's important to know, and you'll have figured it out, and I knew it way before driving, you knew it way before I reviewed these vehicles. Anyhow, the point is that this is where a mainstream automaker has to perform very, very well, because there's no such thing as a large family sedan anymore. People have shunned minivans, sadly, and the station wagon is dead. This is it. And what's significant about the CX-9 is that although other automakers had done it kind of before, I think Mazda, when they launched the CX-9, the second generation in 2016, they were the first to really bring together a high level of premium features, luxury, incredible design, innovative powertrain, and packaged it like this. I mean, I think that at least 2 of the other vehicles that I've just recently reviewed were heavily influenced by the CX-9. There's nothing really new about the 2021.5 CX-9 in Canada, but it's been a while since I drove it. And like I just said, I'm really happy that I got this one after driving the other 3. So in the following video, I'll do the usual walk around, point out a few things, obviously, and then take it for a spin. And I'm telling you now, this is still a really, really compelling and interesting SUV. It's not perfect. There are no perfect vehicles, although I can maybe think of 1 or 2. But in this segment, this is still a really good option. So here we go. Now, I kind of mentioned it already. I mean, the Mazda CX-9 is still an extremely stylish, attractive SUV. What I do really like about what Mazda's done with its design, contrary to, say, the Koreans, is that, well, a number of years ago, they decided to develop a language, a signature design, and they've made it evolve, and it just really, really works. Nothing much. I mean, there have been a few updates in 2021 and 2020, like a nip and a tuck in an addition here and there, but overall, this is essentially the same SUV you could buy back in a 2016 model year, and it still looks really good, contemporary. I mean, I'm going to be honest and say that the first generation CX-9 launched all the way back in 2006 still kind of looks semi-modern. Testament to design. Okay, so in the US for the 2022 CX-9, I don't know, $35,280 for the base sport. The top trim signature is $47,210. In Canada, 2021 and a half GS is $40,550, and the top trim signature is $52,550. For the base price, you do get, or the GS, 18-inch wheels. It's a 7-seater configuration, LEDs, 10.25-inch display, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. And you get a power driver seat and a bunch of other features. Now, my tester here is the Kuro, which was introduced, if I'm not mistaken, for the 2021 model year. Essentially, the Kuro package is a GT plus the option of selecting only 2 colors, polymetal gray or jet mica black, which is what mine is, obviously. You get a nice garnet red leather interior, and that's it. So $1,300 more than the GT. It's $50,850. That's the Kuro. I mean, you do get the power lift gate, cooled seats, navigation, all kinds of other stuff. I mean, I really think it still looks quite good. Hopefully. Yeah, got it. Okay. So trunk-wise, the CX-9 is not the most spacious, to be certain. I mean, look, the opening is not that wide considering the overall size of the vehicle, but it's still quite accessible. I mean, if the third row is up, you're looking at 407 liters of boot space. And with the third row down in this 6-seater configuration, which you get in the Kuro and the Signature, and I believe is available in the GT, you're looking at 1,082 liters. Again, that's not that big. There are a number of 2-row midsize SUVs that offer more trunk space than this 3-row version, but still, plenty of room. Come on. I have a hard time with buttons. Okay, so there's a first shot of the garnet red leather interior, which apparently my daughter has decided to wipe her boots on. Way to go. The seats are extremely comfortable, and I mean, the captain's seating is always welcome, especially with kids. Visibility is good. There's a fair amount of room. I mean, this is as far back as the second row will go, and the first row is in my driving position. It's a good shot of the dash. Also not the most spacious of the 3-row SUVs, but still decently comfortable and large. Nice touches. Love that kind of stuff. All right, so up front, I mean, Mazda, as I said, going premium many times. In fact, I've said that. Contrast, stitching, the materials, they're nice. I know I'm wearing gloves. They're nice to the touch, not always wearing gloves. As you move up the trims, you get, I think it's a 10-way power seat, including the power lumbar support. I mean, the garnet red leather is just beautiful. Let's step aboard. Start it up. So you have your digital readout right there in the middle. The remainder of the gauges are analog, which I kind of absolutely love. It's very easy. Heads-up display in there somewhere. Yeah, you can see it. So there's your 10 1/4. I was going to say touchscreen, but it's not touchscreen. You have to work the controller down here, just in case, right? No, it doesn't. That's unfortunate, as always, but it's a Mazda trademark now. So you can work the menus there. Thankfully, they're quite easy to select, and you have a few shortcuts. Nothing special there. Speaking of easy and shortcuts, I'm always going to praise Mazda for its drive modes. There's normal and sport. Normal, sport. I love that. Storage down here isn't exactly great. I mean, there's only this one bin. It's fairly deep, but once you cover up, once you use the cup holders, you're pretty much done. But look, HVAC controls are very straightforward. There's your heated steering wheel, heated seats, 3 modes. I mean, it's really, really nice in here. In fact, it's nicer in almost all other trims, which is kind of strange, because in the Kuro, everything is blacked out. There's a lot of different surfaces which should be highlighted. Visibility is generally really, really good. Even when you come over here, you've got a nice opening. I mean, it's a really nice place to be. Steering wheel is sporty-ish, again with the contrast stitching. But no, there's no but. I don't know why I said but. Anyhow, oh yeah, Bose audio, which I believe comes with the GT. That's it. That's the interior and exterior tour. Time to go for a drive. Conventional shifter. Yay! Okay. So why this vehicle is still so relevant? I mean, it has to do with, well, the styling, the content, even price-wise at $40,000. I mean, it's not the most expensive, not the cheapest either, SUV in the segment, but the bang for the buck ratio is really good, and then so is the drive. The one thing that is not disappointing, but is, in the all-important numbers game where you gotta boast about, like range, horsepower, stuff like that. The 6-speed automatic transmission is the only weak point. It's not a weak point, but I mean, we're so used to, or I'm so used to 8, 9, even 10-speed automatic transmission that a 6-speed seems like, well, it's missing something, because instead of shifting, this one actually kind of, as you take off slowly, if it starts off in second gear, it almost sounds and feels like a CVT. It's not. And I don't know why I'm saying this, but no, it's just something I've observed driving this vehicle around for the last 4 or 5 days. One of the most interesting things that Mazda did when they launched this vehicle 6-7 years ago now is introduce, well, give up essentially on the V6 and put in a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. They weren't the only ones to do it, but point is that it is the largest displacement 4-cylinder engine turbocharged, and it has some of the bigger numbers. 227 horsepower, 5,000 RPM, or 250 horsepower at 5,000 RPM if you put 93 octane fuel in here, which you just don't bother doing. And 310 pound-feet of torque as of 2,000 RPM, or 320 pound-feet of torque. So that torque figure still remains the highest, if I'm not mistaken, of the 4-cylinder turbocharged 3-row SUVs available on the market. The thing is that it doesn't feel like it's the quickest, but that's not, well, let's use relevant again. In that respect, the Ascent with the 2.4T and the CVT feels like it has 50 horsepower more than this and probably equal more torque. But even so, I mean, when you get on the accelerator, the CX-9 really moves. It's a lovely feeling. The sound of the 4-cylinder is semi-convincing. Fuel consumption numbers, well, I mean, look, as you could see clearly, it's very cold outside and there's a lot of snow on the ground, and I'm averaging just over 12 liters, almost 12 and a half per 100 kilometers, which I think is to be expected and acceptable for the vehicle and the driving conditions. Also, I might be getting all 4 wheels to spin a little bit more often than I should, but that's just me. What is still really, really good, and possibly one of the CX-9's best features, is the ride comfort. Now, Mazdas have historically been about the driving experience as far as the Japanese automakers go, because it applied to the 323, the 626, the 929, well, maybe less the 929, but the CX-9 is definitely about that. But even so, I mean, the fully independent suspension, multi-link setup in the rear, gives you some nice feel. And speaking of feel, the steering is very nice. There's no on-center lack of assistance. It's very direct for the type of vehicle that it is. But the ride quality is really nice. I'm obviously on the 20-inch wheels with the winter tires, and I could see myself having even more fun than I am right now with this SUV. I feel, like I'm in control of something. As far as that's concerned, just to add a little comparison, the Ascent, although it feels much quicker, is nowhere near as good to drive. The steering in the Ascent is, well, it's Subaru steering, which is terrible, generally speaking. The Atlas feels like a little bit more of a lumbering oaf than the CX-9, and the Pathfinder is somewhere in between, closer to the Atlas. So this, even though it's the oldest of the 4 that I've driven, it's still probably one of the better ones to drive. It's not as smooth or cosseting as the Ascent, but it's definitely a lot more enjoyable to drive, especially if you like to get, well, my kids like it when I drive a little bit silly, and it makes them laugh, and typically they ask for more unless I'm in full opposite lock. I should not admit these things. Anyhow, I mean, look, the powertrain, despite maybe being down 2 gears, the transmission, I mean, Mazda's iActive all-wheel drive system is it's fabulous. There is no real discernible lag if you're reasonable on the throttle. That even has a mode that'll help you, an off-road help mode that will regulate, I suppose through the G-vectoring control for torque vectoring, help you tighten up one wheel to give the wheel that has more grip a little bit more power. I mean, it's not an off-roader, and even though the CX-50, Mazda's new SUV, kind of looks like an off-roader, it's not a hardcore off-roader, but it's probably really capable. And this, although I've never taken it off-road, I'm sure is reasonably capable. I mean, how far it'll go will be only limited by the very limited ground clearance. So yeah, three-row SUV, the Mazda CX-9 is still extremely competent. Not the roomiest. But other than that, I really like this thing. Still do, and probably will for another few years, because Mazda have been taking their time to replace the CX-9. 10 years for the first one, maybe another 3 for this one, 2.